What up, people? Happy New Year and welcome to the book club with one mother, three sisters, and a whole lot of hot takes. This is the family plot. I'm Angel, the host and the heart of the crew. Usually, we are joined by my baby sister, Cam, our resident conspiracy theorist, but she is unwell today. Prayers up for Cam and a speedy recovery. But we are here with my mama Lisa, the matriarch and occasional voice of reason, and we're joined by Glenna, my sister-in-law, with insightful takes. So here's how we get down. Each month, we discuss a book of our choosing. Every week, I'll share a brief summary of the chapters we've read, and then we each pick a discussion question to answer. We'll also share our first impressions, predictions, and whatever else comes up along the way. So if any of that interests you, pull up a chair, pour some tea, and get cozy as we get into this month's book right here on the family plot where every chapter digs deep. So we are into A Dusk of Stars by Lyra Forager. This one was picked by Glenna. And we will start just with chapters 1 through 10 tonight. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. So let me get our slides. Hang on, ladies.
I think it may be helpful for our readers when we start a new book that we read the back of it so they have an idea.
You know what? That's a good idea. Go ahead and read the back to the people, Mother.
So this says, the back of this book says, I've always been drawn to magic. I had no idea it would mess up my life like this. Anna knows what she wants. As the only human living among the originals of Grimm Academy, life has its challenges. But with her dark past, Anna is no stranger to challenges. When she finally gets the job she's always wanted and enters the restricted section of the Grimm Academy library, she is selected by a book. The only problem is no human has ever been selected by a book in the Lexicarium. As a newly discovered original, Anna is forced to go from being a librarian to being a student at Grimm Academy. And if that weren't enough, she is forced to study with an annoying new shifter professor, Jericho Bain. But there are strange things happening, dark forces at work that are looking to sow destruction, and a mystery that is begging to be solved. Is Anna a human, an original, or something else entirely? With the fate of all humankind hanging in the balance, Anna is forced to confront her own fears and become more than she ever thought she could be.
So, Anna, a human librarian at Grimm Academy, hopes to become the archivist after her mentor resigns. Despite prejudice from faculty, especially Lorcan, she's allowed to try, but the magical book of librarians initially rejects her. In the restricted section, a powerful book in the Lexicarnum chooses her, triggering a painful vision, and afterwards, she's suddenly able to sign the book. At the opening ceremony, Jericho Bain steals her spotlight, provokes her, and something inside her snaps, leading to accusations she's acted like a shifter or werewolf-esque type creature, for those of y'all who don't know what that is. And then the Pied Piper's magic confirms Anna has hidden supernatural abilities, forcing her to give up her librarian job and enroll as a student. Lastly, Anna struggles through her classes, faces humiliation from Lorcan and Bain, and begins to question her human identity, her powers, and why the Lexicarnum chose her. Ladies, let's get into it. First impressions. Who want to go first? Mother.
Okay, I'm going to jump right on in here.
Jump in.
My predictions are Anna will find out not only is she a shifter, but she is divergent. Hello. And when I say divergent, I'm going back, of course, to that series thinking of more than one thing. So I believe she human and a shifter. And I don't know how that can exist in this particular world, but I think anything is possible. And then my other prediction, where it says she didn't like Professor Bane, Jericho Bane. She don't like Bane, but she is connected to him some kind of way. And I think that um, she is the same or a shifter similar to what he is. I think they've crossed paths, and that may be, I kind of feel like some of that dark magic is that she has connected with Bane at some other point, and she may not remember it, or it may be a bloodline tie and nobody knows yet. But I'm thinking some of that may be revealed as we get further on into this. And with that, I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Mother, for that colorful response. I love it. Glenna, first impressions, please.
Mind you, I was changing over stuff in the kitchen, so I apologize for my absence. But did I hear Lisa say that she thought that she might be more than just a shifter? I agree with that. I think she's more than one. I think she's at least two. My leaning is that she's Fae, if I had to guess. And my guess is in their world where everything seems to be divided, that her being more than one will be considered an abomination, and therefore that's why she was hidden. I also think, I don't know if she's the exact same as Bane, but I think she's linked to him through fate in some capacity, whether it's his mate or as they have a shared destiny. I don't know, but something is pulling them together, whether they like it or not. So I think that's there. Because I find it interesting that, out of all of the history of this world, she's the first human to be allowed in the library, let alone on faculty at all. But it's just interesting. And I think it's very telling who immediately despised her and who is protective of her. So I think that's going to show itself in future. But I can't decide if Larkin just hates her for the fact that she was human and now she's not, or if he and his bloodline were somehow involved in her hiding. Because he was very adamant she not be given a chance, but then again, he also didn't object to the tasks she was given either. And if he was part of the group that hid her, I think he would have not wanted her to come in contact with any of those books. So that's an interesting dynamic that I'm curious to how is going to develop. And with that, I yield.
Yes, ma'am. Lots to ponder there. Goodness. Okay, so my first impressions, very similar to you both, actually. I do agree that the connection between her and Bane is magnetic, heavy on the whether they like it or not. I'm getting, I don't remember the term exactly, but what is it when y'all remember Twilight where the vampire boy that liked the girl had
They was marked. She was marked. I said it too.
Imprinting, like
Imprinting,
the boy
yep.
imprinted on the baby. Yes.
Yep.
I have a feeling that like they're not imprinted on each other, but I feel like a similar bond might be at play, or maybe past lives, something to that effect. It's more and more obvious with each chapter because of how the author is describing her sensations of him when she's not even aware that he's in the room. So yeah, that's not just your regular I can't stand your ass. It's something else there. Also, all right, Glenna, hang on one second. Oh, her, as far as her abilities are concerned, I feel like she might be a hybrid of some sort. Like we really don't know too much about her parents and or her upbringing, except that she was really just ready to get away from wherever she grew up. And I'm under the impression that either she might have been lied to about who her parents are, or her parents are possibly shifter plus fae, possibly other creatures altogether. It definitely gives me a legend born vibe in the sense of how that main character had a conglomerate of powers because of her bloodline. So I'm thinking we're gonna have more to come on her lineage as an explanation for her abilities and why they were hidden from her for so long. Um, and then yeah, Glenna, you're right. It's very telling who despises her and who protects her. I'm really curious to know what it is Lorcan MacArthur has against her, other than the typical prejudice against othered communities, because he doesn't seem to be a fan of humans at all. But I'm curious as to why that is. So looking forward to figuring out more about that. And that is my first impressions. Glenna, you had a hand raised.
I was gonna say something about the whole, the kind of imprint, immediate draw. I think that he's fully aware of what it is and immediately recognizes it, which is, I think, is why he kept needling her until he could figure out who or what she was. But I don't think she's going to be fully aware of it until she can tap into her powers.
Agreed. Agreed. Mom, anything to add before we move into our questions of the night? Yes, no, maybe so.
I just thought it was funny that we were kind of all on the same page, because I had wrote down here in my bottom notes that Bane was an alpha without a pack, and maybe Anna may be part of his pack, or he may have been marked, like I said, like in Twilight, or in the word better is imprinted. One of them had imprinted on the other. So I was just kind of tickled. I was like, everybody on the same page on this one. Kind of sort of with, a different tweak in one area or another. But yeah, we were definitely thinking on the same lines. Yeah, I mean, it was so many similarities of what I was thinking versus what y'all said. I was like, okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out in this one.
I love it when we're on one accord, but in different ways.
I do too. I do too. It's fun.
Alrighty, ladies, moving into our questions of the night. We have identity and belonging, power and prejudice, the choice versus fate, and relationships and manipulation. Now, since Cam isn't here, we will all answer whatever question is left over. But yeah, who would like first pick at the questions? Glenna, go for it.
I'll take relationships and manipulation.
Relationships and manipulation. Bane's dynamic with Anna is magnetic, but also intimidating and antagonistic. How does their early interaction set the tone for a complex relationship? Do you interpret it as enemies to something else or something more dangerous?
I'm not going to go straight to enemies because he's still very much an unknown. I think, for lack of a better term, he's an a-hole. But I think he's had to be that way. He's from these first 10 chapters, we've gathered that he's the head or CEO of a big conglomeration. So he has to deal with that dynamic all the time. He's described as an alpha without a pack. So he's basically a leader with only his corporation to lead, not his fellows to lead. So when you're the leader without people to follow, you tend to have to be that way to the nth degree. You have to be always on point, always, intimidating, always, the best at everything, because if you aren't, why are you in the position if you have no one following you? So I think his dynamic in this is very much an unknown. And I think he's careless because he obviously doesn't care too much about he's there for a reason, but the teaching is not the reason he's there. I mean, I think they said he's there specifically to teach one student. And I think if we saw that interaction, we might see, an actual teacher student relationship, but everything else is an inconvenience to him right now. So I think his motivations and where he's coming from is going to be developed later on. But I also think he's curious about her because she's an unknown. And I don't think somebody in his position likes unknowns. And so he's just as much, in all honesty, he's kind of giving back to her what she's giving off to him first. Because the thing is that every interaction that he's given to her has been based on her initial interactions with him. She didn't walk up to him and say, just so that you're aware, that's my chair. You should actually be sitting here. She said it in a, hey, she started out polite, but didn't end that sentence polite. So he immediately had his back up. So I think that at the moment, her insecurities are driving that relationship. And I'm hoping once she settles into her new reality, that will lessen. So I'm hesitant to label it enemies to lovers or enemies to whatever this dynamic is supposed to be. I think it's unknown to unknown at this point. But I'm interested to see how it is because he's genuinely curious about her, but also annoyed at the same because she's not giving the responses he wants. And I think until she either figures it out or she starts responding the way he wants her to, he's going to continue to be annoyed with her. And with that, I yield.
Good stuff, Glenna. Good stuff. I feel very similarly, and I'd like to also add, I think this comes a little bit later on, but I get the impression that she's a plus size girly. And so with that, it to me speaks to her insecurities flaring up in the way that they do, because first off, she's human in a world of magical beings, and she's plus size in a world that's not always kindly to plus size people. So I feel like her guard is always up anyway. And then when you have somebody like Jericho Bain who enters into the one of the few places you find comfort, and then all of those insecurities are activated, I think it's just par for the course that she was as rude as she was. Not being an apologist for Anna in any way, but I think it's important to note that the same reasons why Jericho Bain may be an asshole is very similar to why Anna's also an asshole. there's some it's very layered, I think. And yeah, you're right. It's easy to read this and not consider Anna rude at first. But if you really look at their first interactions, she really does set the tone. And it ain't great. So,
There's a line they do talk about when she goes to the cafeteria after her first note. They talk about her talking about her weight and how she got a weird look from somebody when she was grabbing food, and she's like, "Oh yeah, us bigger girls always get looked at funny when we grab food."
yeah.
But I think another thing that was also very telling about her own insecurities is she's human, and I can't remember what chapter it was in, but somebody was talking about um what do you consider a danger to you? And she's like, I'm a woman. I'm in danger regardless of whether I'm surrounded by originals or not.
Period.
Yeah. So I think that's very telling on her mentality going into this.
Mhm.
She's hyper aware, hyper, sensitive to all of it because she has to be.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Both of them are operating from a spirit of being inconvenienced because all Anna really wanted to do was become the archivist. And now she has all these new obstacles in her way that are just more annoying for her. And same with Bane. All he wants to do is whatever he wants to do. And him being at this measly little school is a huge inconvenience. So I think they're both embittered by their circumstance, which is also fueling the fire of how they interact with each other. Mom, anything to add? No? Maybe so? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Glenna, for that wonderful input. Mother, what will your question be? You got to come on off of mute. There you
I'm
go.
off mute.
All right. What will it be,
I
man?
think I'm gonna pick identity and belonging.
Identity and belonging. Anna's sense of self is repeatedly challenged, first as a human in a magical institution, then as someone suddenly revealed to have latent powers. How does the story use Anna's shifting identity to explore what makes someone belong in a community? Yeah, getting real deep on you real early in the evening.
Right. How does the story of Anna's shifting identity used to explore what makes someone belong to me? Okay. So generally belonging. Am I?
Something's happening where there's some feedback.
It's echoing really bad. Oh, all right. Is that a little better?
A little bit.
Well, when it comes to belonging, everybody wants to belong to because it keeps you from being lonely. It takes away the isolation. But generally, when you belong to something or someone, it's because of a commonality. In this case, you're the world. This particular world is set in terms of groups that have something similar. You're either a shifter, a fae, a vampire, a human. And her identity has just been shifted from what she thought she was to something totally different. So now her belonging shift has also changed because now she's finding herself in a world where she doesn't belong. She doesn't understand. And a lot of times we as individuals can find ourselves put in that same situation when we transition from one state in our life to another state. It explores community, it explores being a part of a community because that's what everyone strives for, not just belonging, but belonging to something other than just your immediate family. And in this case, if I was a shifter, I would want to be in a community of other shifters because that's where I would feel most comfortable. Anna, of course, who was a human being put into a world, she already was uncomfortable, but she was willing to take that risk to become what she wanted to become, which was the librarian in that facility. And then to turn around and be able to feel some type of community and with the other librarians is one thing, and knowing that she's already different but still belonging to this community of learners was one thing, but then being shifted into another level of development because she no longer belongs to the librarians because she's no longer a librarian. When she finds out that she's not human, she's been put into a whole nother world. So you being taken out of being a librarian, now you're a student. this is a whole nother community she didn't feel comfortable with because number one, she's older than most of them, at least by I would say 8 to 10 years. It's like putting a college kid back in middle school. That throws you off a little bit. And then to find out, not only did I gotta get put in middle school, now I ain't even human. So that's like telling a black girl, you ain't black, you Asian. Come on now. You have completely thrown me out of what I knew I was and what community I was in into a whole nother. So I've lost my identity, I've lost my community, and now I have to redefine who I am. And part of this journey is going to be just that. And that's something that we all go through, not in one way or another. As we grow and develop, you go from being a student to an employer, sometimes to an employee, or you go from being married in one family to having to connect to another family. All of that is affected by, number one, your identity and understanding who you are. And you can't belong anywhere until you truly understand who you are. And that is how it's going to change who Anna is and who her community comes to be. She didn't have it at the very beginning of this book. She talked about the different categories of individuals in their world, and she's not saying she has any dislike to any of them. So, but it's also not to say that I'm comfortable being identified as something different because I don't know what that is. It's saying, okay, great, this is a vampire and these are their characteristics. Because she's talked about daydreaming about being each one of those different types of individuals. She dreamt about being a fae and having all sight. And she, created those stories in her head where she was the vampire and had this super speed, or she'd be able to shift into anything she wanted to shift in. So it's not in her mind in the beginning of the book, it wasn't that she has anything against them, but she also recognized, well, it's not who I am. I can just imagine being them. But now she recognized I'm actually am one of them, and I don't know anything about that. And that threw her off. It throws you off of who you are or who you know yourself to be, because in the very beginning of the book, she was very sure of herself, and now she's not. So now she has to identify I got to figure out who the heck I am before I can even feel comfortable in being in another community. And let's be real, she still wants the ultimate goal of being an archivist. So, she's got some hurdles to jump through and go through. But I think this is, and I don't want to call it a struggle. This journey she's about to embark on is one we probably all can identify with, just with the different set of circumstances. And with that, I yield.
Yes, good stuff, Mom. I think we figured out some of the feedback issues. I'm just going to mute myself whenever you're talking because that seemed to help a lot. Yeah, you hit all the nails on the head. Girl, you always seem to come up on these identity questions. You just art imitating life, eh? But no, you've hit the nail on the head. Like, there is now a lot of uncertainty where there was none before. And she's at a point where she's really got to question what connection looks like, what belonging looks like. So yeah, it's a wild ride, girl. It's a wild ride. All right. So my question, I guess I will pick, see, we already did these two. I will do Power and Prejudice. Okay, Lorcan and Bane both wield authority, yet use it in drastically different and often abusive ways. What commentary does the story make about institutional power, bias, and who gets to decide someone's worth? Cool child. Wow, I seem to always pick these as well. Y'all ain't gotta agree so quickly. Goodness. No, I mean, I have a very strong sense of justice, so it makes sense that yeah. I think the story is making a very intentional message about institutional power and bias and the powers that be and the hierarchy that's within certain social circles, being that a human seems to be the bottom of the totem pole in this community or in this world, and that so many unexpected happenings are coming from this one human. We're shown a lot of that hostility and vitriol for just being human in this world. And I think that just speaks to, or at least draws a parallel into our current world and how we in our current world decide who's at the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak. Who has worth or meaning in a society based on capitalistic values, who gets picked up by ICE. Oh, I'm sorry, did I who's subject to certain biases in the workplace, who's subject to certain biases just based on their gender. I mean, she even mentions, just as Glenna said earlier, her being a woman subjects her to a whole host of disadvantages. And I think the commentary being made here, as it's been made in many other books that we've read, is that whoever is in power, or at least their perceived definition of power, is the group that gets to decide who is at the bottom of the totem pole. And unfortunately for those people, they don't get a say. They get a lot of the backlash and the bias. They get a lot of the short end of the stick when it comes to institutional power, if they do get any power. And I think for Lorcan and Bain specifically, they just represent how many people in leadership in our current world wield that same power to their to align with their own values and to benefit them in the way that they see fit. Now, I'm not entirely certain what Lorcan's values are, but we can tell that it's not about courage, connection, and community, just in how he treats Anna. So, and with that, I yield. Anything to add, ladies, before we move to our last and final question?
I told you, life imitating art.
You're so silly. All right. So since Cam isn't here, we can all tag team on this last question: choice versus fate. Excuse me. The Lexicarnum book, Choosing Anna, seems to pull her into a destiny she didn't ask for. Do you think Anna is being chosen for greatness or forced into a role for someone else's agenda? What makes you think so? Who want to go first? Mother, go ahead.
I'm going to say chosen. Because I firmly believe, I think we all kind of hit this one, is that Anna is one of maybe few, if any others, that is what we said, divergent. I'm gonna keep using that because that's the easiest way to describe this. And that she is more than one thing. She's either human and shifter. She's either, and because we don't know her past, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna say she Faye and shifter. I'm gonna say mama was something and daddy was something else, and they got together and made a baby. And I feel like when the book was talking about she's, part of the fate of the world, I feel like she is going to be one if not the first, one of several who have been, like you said, like Anna said, like Linda said, hidden because they don't know the outcome of what that would look like and how that would cause chaos or turmoil. And because people don't understand it could bring unity, they're afraid. And when people are afraid, they do different things, and they hide to keep from being called out or cast out. So I really feel like her role, because that's where I'm going. I'm saying she divergent. I'm just gonna put it out there. We know she ain't vampire. And the reason I say we know she's not vampire, because in the story, when she describes, she said vampires have to be born that way. She ain't a vampire. So we can rule that out. But I believe she's either fae, and because there was no given characteristics about a fae person, just that they were all they were knowing, they had this type of insight. So I'm gonna say she's either fae and shifter or human and shifter. But at either rate, I feel like because she may be one or the only one that has this fate, she's actually chosen for greatness. And the fate of the world or their world could be the thing, but I think she has a destiny that is going to come about. And like we talked about in the previews, that there's some darkness. What did it call it? What did it say? Strange things happening and looking to sow forces that are at work to looking to sow destruction, and a mystery that is begging to be solved. I feel like the forces that are looking to sow destruction are the ones that are trying to keep it from being known, because like you said, if there truly is a hierarchy or of people, they know that could bring folks together, or I think it could bring folks together versus tearing them apart, because there would be another dynamic of individual in the world, a melting pot, if you would. And I think the forces don't want that to occur, which is why they went into hiding to keep, because kind of like when Moses, when back in the biblical days, when they was killing the babies because of the prophecy kind of situation. That's what I kind of feel like when we talk about this. And that's why I think it was saying Anna is forced to confront her own fears and become more than she ever thought she could be. I think that what she could be is she could be the tide that either breaks the world or bring it together. So I really believe her situation is a fate-based one. I don't think she's being forced into the role. I think she's being awakened into the role. I think that book called her out so that she can wake up and find out not only who she is, but why she is. And with that, I yield.
Okay. Lots to ponder there. Glenna, what say ye?
I actually kind of agree. I think it's a forced fate, not necessarily a chosen or forced into somebody else's agenda. I think it's kind of both. Chosen for greatness and forced into a role of somebody else's agenda. I don't think those two statements really meet what's going on here. I think she was hidden for a reason, but we don't know yet whether her being hidden was to make somebody else's situation better or if it was to protect her. And we don't know if the being chosen by the book was an inevitability or a happenstance. So so we don't know because there's no guarantee that she would have been allowed into that room. They could have simply said, she's human, this isn't going to happen, you can't get the job, and that would have been the end of it. She would have stayed in her position, She would never come in contact with that room or those books, and nothing would have changed that we're aware of. Doesn't mean something else wouldn't have triggered her later, but it would have kept her hidden at this point in time. But the book and the triggering occurred here. Now the question is, did it occur despite somebody else's machinations, or did it occur earlier than it was meant to, or did it occur like it was fated, like the circumstances were put in place? Because she did state that it was unusual, and rather she kind of gave the impression when she was reading the email that she wasn't expecting that particular person to retire. She hadn't told them. This is her mentor. Her mentor didn't mention she was living. Her mentor didn't mention anything. She's just gone. This is a person that she trusted with her safety at this school, and now they're gone. So did that happen to put her in a position where she would be exposed to this book? Is that person involved in her hiding or the discovery of who she is? There's a lot of unknowns here. And like I said, we don't know whether this circumstance occurred as it was meant to, in spite of somebody, or ahead of schedule. And I think until we learn that bit of information, we're not going to know where she fits in all this yet. But I do agree that I think it's fated. I think she's meant to be going down this path. It's just, I think this is a path that she should have been going on all along, but she was hidden from it. Now the question is she hidden from it for somebody else's protection or hidden for her own protection? We don't know that yet. And with that, I yield.
So, ladies, I actually agree with you both in the statement that this is fate. Baby girl was gonna be revealed as whatever she was gonna be at some point. I do think it's a little column A, column B though, when the question asks, is she being forced? I do feel like the revelation of her bloodline or whatever was forced, and I'm not sure why, but I predict that it does have something to do with her mentor all of a sudden disappearing. It's very possible that before her mentor left, she put some things in place in the restricted section so that this information could be revealed to her. It's also very possible that mom is agreeing. It's also very possible that her mentor is in danger and has been removed and is trying to warn her to protect herself, and therefore awakening her abilities in a roundabout way to do so. And while that does kind of force her into this student role, which I wouldn't wish that on anybody, especially as a grown woman, while this puts her, in the agenda, so to speak, of going this path, I do feel like she was chosen to do just that, because she's going to need whatever instruction or guidance or technique that can be learned in these classrooms for whatever is coming, and whatever is coming may or may not be what removed her mentor in the first place. I don't know. That's just my prediction. So, and with that, I yield. So ladies, as we look forward to chapters, what is it? 11 through 20 next week. Any final thoughts, conclusions, pending questions, any of the things? Come on off the mute.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tag me in.
Do share, mother. Go for it.
Y'all had me over here tweaking. So anyway, I'm thinking one of the things you all said made a whole lot of sense. Number one, yes, I think her mentor somehow is involved. And that the reason she was her protector is because she knew who she actually was. And that she set some things up. And the reason she didn't know her background until now was because they kept her hidden to keep her alive. Because if y'all remember, it's a lot of stuff she was talking about. And she said they quick to put you to death up around there when something ain't going their way. You know, we talking about the people in power. And I figure somewhere around that line that somebody in power, the powers that be, said if we get a crossbreed or inbred baby or whatever, a crossbreed, you got to kill it. You know, you got to go because it can't exist. You know, so I'm thinking, oh, they had that baby in hiding all this time, making sure it did not show and it was not giving any warnings and probably was dulling the sensations and all of that to keep her safe until she is of an age and of a mindset where she can recognize not only who she is, but be okay with not being, being, I'm going to say wise enough to know that, oh, I have to do something different and go ahead and do it. But as she learns who she truly is, she would, like you said, Angel, have picked up those powers for whatever is coming. So she will have not only learned who she truly is and how to utilize and wield whatever talents that type of background is entailed to learn, but she would also, because like I said, I promise you this woman is divergent some way. Not only is she got to be a fae. I'm sorry. She got to be a fae and a shifter. I'm sorry. That's where I am.
Well, I have not read that series, but just based on what you're discussing and how you described it, I would agree. I also think that, when we talk about any community or group or facet of society that has such a need for binary thinking or binary ways of doing things, it's always in the spirit of control, right? So if what you're saying is true, and if we got to kill anything that ain't pure blood or pure birth, it's giving very much Slytherin vibes. And it again just makes me wonder and question what happened prior to Anna being born and what happened in this world to cause that to be the standard. Why is there such a resistance against that type of coexistence, if not for control? And if you have that control already in your own magical world, in your own magical school, what we talking about?
It reminds me very much of the Wizard of Oz and Todrick Hall's flip on, not the Wizard of Oz. What's that one he did? He did a video. Forbidden. It's very much forbidden to me because you have the world we live in right now, and he flipped that thing completely. And this is what this book is giving to me. It's giving that, okay, we have this world, this society where this works here, this works here, this works here. You got the hierarchy of people, you got the measures of education, you got all that. And even though they are allowed to intermingle, because you remember before she got to Grimm Academy, she was at the restaurant where the vampire was dating some other person. And she was sucking up to him, but she herself wasn't a vampire. And even though he bit her lip, she can't turn into a vampire. So we know they coexist. But just like our current society, some powers don't want us to coexist. They don't want you making mulatto babies. They don't want you to have interracial relationships. And I feel like in this particular world we're reading about, that may be the case. And so you're right. I think because that, and that's why I said, like in Unforgiven or Forbidden, it seems like this world is flipped from what our world would be. And so I really feel like those in power have trickled down this challenge of having, or not this challenge, but they're trying to create this world where you say what you call pure blood is what you were saying, where the groups are kept pure.
Yeah, and the coexisting it just feels very performative because you can tell that there is
Exactly.
an agenda for somehow, some way for there to be a purging or a cleansing where there's just
Mm-hmm.
magical creatures, just this type of magical creature
Mm-hmm.
with each other. And I, again, I always think when we look at anthropological examples of this all across history, all across the globe, it's only when people do decide to start having mulatto babies and mixing phase and shifters that those systems crumble, because then the for lack of a better phrase, then Oz gets revealed as what it really is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious in this book to know what's really going on behind the walls of Grimm Academy and in that whole world in general. Because
Mm-hmm.
students being taught, it's some stuff.
It's some stuff. What say you, Glenna?
I agree. I'm interested in to see where it goes with this. And I share some of your predictions and where things are going. I do have to say, even though we've only seen snapshots of her, I love Raven.
Yes, she's a fave. Mm-hmm.
She kind of she screams, I'm the Luna Lovegood of this series.
Yes,
You too. I said the same thing. Oh my God.
But I absolutely adore her. She's so skittish, but given her background, it kind of makes sense why she's skittish. But I honestly think that she's going to be an ally to her. I think we'll see that friendship develop. It's going to take a little bit because you've got two people who are very insecure and very hesitant. And I think both of them are going to be hesitant to make bonds. But I think once they finally get that point, they're going to be great together. I'm interested to see what happens with the professor, the Sierra, the Fae one that was like, I see a lot of myself in you. I'm not sure that that connection is going to be as good as we hope it's going to be.
okay.
Because it's coming off performative. Because she was the first to turn hostility towards her when it was discovered she was a shifter. But then she comes to her while she's eating lunch and going, I reacted that way because I thought, you'd lied to us. And, but now that I know you haven't, I see the hardships in your situation mimic the hardships in mine. And my brain immediately went, excuse me? I think we saw who you truly were last night, not right now.
That's
I, I'm,
an
I,
observation.
I hope I'm proved wrong because I would love for her to have an ally in her. But I'm thinking that's not an ally we want.
I would
I think if she turns out to be Faye, I think that particular professor will be the first one to call for her head.
I hope that she is an ally as well, because she's somewhat in a position of power and she's, for lack of a better word, crippled in a way. I think she has a lot of ailments going on. And so if anybody should understand being disadvantaged, it would be her. And it should be her that offers her the guidance she needs at this point, having been at a disadvantage. But if she's
I
not,
agree.
oh baby, if she's not an ally, this is gonna be a wild ride.
Or on the flip side of that, because, we don't know yet, if she's Faye and if Anna is part Faye, The other side of that is that I think that she's potentially related to her.
I could see that. I could see that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, ladies, I'm excited for next week. Hopefully, Cam will be feeling better because, she has plenty of conspiracy theories to share at all times. So we need our resident conspiracy theorist back. Send your prayers up for healing, and we will meet next week, chapters 11 through 20 of A Desk of Stars.
Yay!
Yay!
Have a good night, y'all.
See you
Good
next
night.
week. Good night.
Bye.